how do you plan to build an empire and win in 2025?
A lot of entrepreneurs are not made to make millions a month. They don't have what it takes. Like, for example, I have a really, really high stress tolerance, really high. Whereas if someone else was in my position, they would fall apart.
The reality is you're going to piss people off no matter what you do. So you may as well know who you're targeting.
And every hero becomes a villain. And then once you're a villain for long enough, they want to see you become a hero again. And that's also why I'm not emotional about these things. So with my investments, I am super aggressive. And if I can't be aggressive, I'm not going to take the deal. If I'm not getting ridiculous terms, I don't take the deal.
If you had to be remembered for one word, what would that be?
I always say this, like, if info businesses had value, I genuinely believe I'd be a billionaire by now. Because all I do is make money in info and invest in info businesses. I don't know if you know this, but there's a guy in there that does 1.4 billion a year. With a B.
Are you proud of yourself?
I guess the simple answer is yes, but...
Part of building any empire, there's always going to be like an opposing force. Someone that's going to try to overthrow you at times, especially when you buy their domain and change your domain. So how do you plan to build an empire and win, especially with WAP in 2025?
Well, you have to focus... Listen, when it comes to WAP specifically, obviously... Listen, in any company you speak to, even in my businesses, everyone is sort of optimized for different things. When it comes to WAP specifically, the thing I'm optimized for the most is payments. Like for me, I want to build the best payment infrastructure of any company out there, because for me, that's like short-term how we win. Long-term, obviously, you know, Steven, who's our CEO, and Cam, like they have much bigger plans for WAP, and they see something, WAP is this much bigger thing, and quite frankly, they're far more intelligent than I am in those domains. So I kind of, you know, we leave them to that. Where we really focus on is we know this online informational digital product industry better than anyone else. And yeah, we just keep growing our payments infrastructure, and it shows, you know, month on month, we pretty much, of course, there's some months that's not applicable, but in general, month on month, we grow 10% month on month with how much we're processing on WAP. And I don't see that slowing down anytime soon.
Where do you think your zone of genius is in life?
I'm very pessimistic, funnily enough. So I look at things from a very pessimistic lens, and I look at things from a very, I think I'm very strategic, and I'm very patient and orderly. So for example, let's say we have this ultimate goal of hitting this thing. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's bring that down. What do we need to accomplish in the meanwhile to get to that place? And I said, I'm very pessimistic with things. So I like asking my team all the time, you know, what am I not seeing here? Like with this thing, with this initiative, or this thing that we're trying to do, what am I not seeing? And I'm always thinking worst case scenario, because I mean, if it goes better, then it goes better, but I always prepare for worst case.
How do you prepare a team for that if you're looking at it from the angle of what could go wrong? Like, how do you change that viewpoint?
Well, I think there's certain people in the company you shouldn't burden with that. So for example, anyone that's creative, I think in general, don't try to burden them with what could go wrong. There's certain people who, like, for example, me, and I'll speak at least at this company, or, I mean, you know, I can even introduce, yeah, you'll be here tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Some of it tomorrow. I'll introduce you. You'll meet my COO, for example, in my eyewear business, Liz. She's German. Like, actually, I've said this before, but I actually mean it. Like, I try to hire German COOs. She is like, her and Max are the same, right? And that's literally all my businesses. I try to hire someone who's basically the stressor, I call him. Max, all the Max does is think, how could things go wrong? And think worst case scenario, okay, what if we forgot this thing? What if we didn't get this thing? What if the upload fails here? What if this partner of ours cuts our contract with them? Like, all they do all day is basically sit and stress. And there should be people in your company that are the stressors and are always thinking worst case scenario. Now, there's certain people in your company, let's say, for example, you know, for this business, Luis can't sit there and constantly think worst case scenario, because then he's not going to have that flow through of genius to do what he needs to do on the marketing side. So I think there's certain people in the company where their job, quite frankly, is to worry, stress, and just always think worst case scenario.
But at the same time, you're able to shine a light on like what is the upside for them, because that's the reality you created, right? I know you've talked about reality transurfing before. It was the first book you read. You were 14.
Not first book, but it was
one of the first ones. How do you like adapt that reality though into like the day to day?
Well, I think, listen, as I said, everyone lives a different reality, and I also understand that each person is different. So what I mean by that is everyone has a different stress tolerance. You know, so I know, okay, this person I could burden with this stress of something that potentially might not even be a problem, but me bring that onto them isn't going to ruin their day. Whereas there's some people, if I bring up something that probably won't become a problem, if I bring up something that probably won't even become a problem, first of all, it probably isn't going to become a problem. And second, that might throw off their entire workflow for the rest of the week. So I think it's just knowing, I don't believe that there's one size fits all leadership style. I think that when it comes to leading a team and running a team, you just need to know who you're speaking to, and you need to have grace between different people. And, even for me, I have a certain way of communicating, but when there's people in my team, I know I have to maybe over communicate, or I have to communicate in a softer way. Whereas there's certain people where it's just like, we get along well, or it doesn't take any extra thing because they communicate in the exact same way I communicate.
Just want to take one quick break to ask you one question. Have you been enjoying these episodes? Because if you have, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel so that more people can see these episodes and be influenced to build an online business this year. Thank you.
Yeah, man. I fell into that issues many times too, is in you're trying to fix a specific problem to someone who's more on the emotional side. So it's that person needs to be communicated differently. Like my wife, for instance, I could tell her to do something 100 times over. She's not going to do it. But if I have to showcase why and connect maybe more emotionally, then she will. And I think that's just the levels of like EQ, which I feel like you've developed at a very high level. How have you kind of focused on that?
I think a lot of offline stuff. I think in general, a lot of people in our online industry have very low EQ because you don't spend a lot of time with people face to face and read these micro expressions. And I kind of even alluded to it earlier in there in my last presentation. One of the most profitable things I did, not to go from 0 to like 1 in our industry, but once I was already at a pretty successful place, one of the things that I really did to take it to the next level is just hanging out with people in different industries and learning about different industries. And you start to learn that no business is perfect. No business is perfect. No talent is perfect. Everything comes with drawbacks and whatnot. So I think the more time you can spend in the real world, that's why even Ali and I talk about it a lot. Him and I are very like old school kind of guys, and we learned respect very early on in life. And one of the reasons, and that's like carried well for us in the space. And I think that's unfortunately one of the things the space lacks a lot of is just like old school respect principles.
What was a driver for that? Because I completely agree with you. I feel like our space can often be like the 10K one chop shop. It's almost like rude, right? It's like rude selling. It's a wrong type of selling style. And even being, mentored by yourself and your team, I've seen like the elegance and the brand and the positioning. But what was a driving force for you to be like, okay, I need to be much more respectful with the people I work with, maybe the people around you, maybe your mother, everything together?
Yeah. So for me, funnily enough, it was actually my stepdad growing up. So he was a very interesting character. And I even have, like, a lot of people close to me a lot of times are like, why did you give him so much grace? And I'm like, listen, at the end of the day, he may have not been particularly nice to me and my mom, and eventually got to a point where he cut us off. But I'm just old school. Like, I still lived under his roof. For me, if I live under your roof, whatever you need to do, like, I was basically his personal assistant, his personal butler, like, I was on call 24/7, 365 days a year. So for me, that's, for example, how I learned old school respect. Also, I guess where I come from in the world, coming from Dagestan, these are things that are instilled in you. But then there's other ways that you can learn that. Like, for example, we have Alex here. Alex tells me all the time, one of the things I really wish I had gone through in life, I've never had a job, and I wish I had. Like, I don't say that as in like, oh, I'm better than having a job. Like, I really wish I had a 9 to 5, or especially something like physical, like very like just physically exhausting, because I don't have that context for, sometimes we forget that in our world, like we're having a rough day. And then for me, I don't have that time to like go back to like, well, fuck, when I was, whether it's like washing plates for 12 hours, it's like, okay, nothing will ever compare to like that time. So like, let me stop being fucking ungrateful little shit, and let me like have some context around like really the reality I'm living. So sometimes, I wish I had that, because I feel like that gives you a sense of respect. And even learning, like, because of my stepdad, for example, I learned how to bite my tongue, and that's been one of like the best things. Even my team, a lot of times, they're like, why aren't you reacting to this? I'm like, because I don't care about my emotions or being right in the moment. I just care long term, and I just care about strategy. And a lot of times strategy is you bite your tongue and you speak when the time is right. And, you don't say anything until you've won the war in its entirety. Until then, you keep your opinions in private, or you keep your moves in private, or whatever it may be. So, very long-winded and kind of went away from the initial question, but I think it's just a larger conversation about respect, and however you learn that respect or those old school principles. So for me, it was kind of because of my stepdad, and then even my mom, like, small feisty Russian woman. Like still to this day, like, you know, that's my mom. So it's like she is the only one that, not to say she tells me what to do, but like if she shouts at me, I listen. Like I just don't have a choice, and that's kind of where I come from in the world. So whether it's that, whether it's experience I wish I had, which is that having a 9 to 5 growing up and really learning like a proper day's work. Like I know what a proper day's work is like mentally, and being like mentally drained, but like from a physical perspective, I haven't had that. So I think any of those things teach you respect. And if, you know, especially in the space, maybe someone hasn't had a 9 to 5, or maybe they didn't learn that from their parents, go do something, you know, whether that's, for example, boxing, like something that like teaches you, quite frankly, how to just shut the fuck up, bite your tongue, how to be humbled. And I think a lot of people in this industry, unfortunately, have a bad attitude because they haven't been humbled yet.
And even one thing, a big observation I've had recently is people that are not coachable, and people that have God complex and a variation of it. I find that coming to this like mastermind and being here, you get humbled pretty hard. You see people like Ryan, you see guys that are just killing it, and like that puts you in your place. Maybe from a not from such a negative perspective, like working in Pizza Hut, which by the way I did at 19 years old. I was like I was making pizzas and stuff, and I knew that's the hell. I'm not going back there. So you don't need to have heaven and hell, but if you're not coachable and you have that chip on your shoulder, like I don't know about you, man, but you know those first couple of years, that really knocked the chip off my shoulder. So that's why I see sometimes that when you make more money, I don't understand how you could become more arrogant. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, you talk about like, for example, a gentleman like Ryan, like, you know, I don't know if you know this, but there's a guy in there that does 1.4 billion a year with a B.
I think I'm sitting next to him.
Yeah, you're sitting next to him. Yeah. So like, you know, you talk about levels and whatnot.
Yeah.
And once again, that also like ties into like the fact, like after, you know, we just wrapped up this presentation, he comes to me, he's like, man, I think about all the headaches in my business, and like he almost wants what we have. And it's like, you do 1.4 billion with a B a year, right? You do 1.4 billion with a B a year between your conglomerate of businesses, and he wants what we have. And then we look at him and we're like, we want what you have. So that's why you also learn like the grass is never greener. Like, you know, it's just like, there's no perfect business. Like we all just, you know, and that's why like I'm never jealous of other businesses, even though I'm involved in many different verticals. And I think that also has given me perspective, is like, you know, I have things I hate about my physical product businesses. I have things I hate about my software businesses, about the info business. So I have just a very good understanding, and that also parlays into, you know, the feeling of not having a God complex. It's like, you could sit here and have a God complex, and then you speak to someone like that. And it's like, and that's why I like speaking to people in different industries, because it gives you a very interesting perspective. And I like speaking to people in different industries without getting like FOMO or feeling like, oh, the grass is greener there. I can speak to them, and I want to hear about their wins and how their industry is. But then I also ask them about what are the headaches that come with your industry. So it gives me a balanced perspective. It's like, you have these rewards, but they come with these headaches. And also and I also a lot of times ask, what were your competitive advantages or did you have any competitive advantage? 99% of the time, that competitive advantages that got you to this point of success with your business. So yeah, I think it's just being around different industries. And as I said, in our pool, I think a lot of times it becomes this like cesspit of like, oh, well, I'm 200 a month, I'm 20 a month. Like I said it in there. If someone makes $3 million a month in profit in their info business, or someone makes 50 grand a month profit in their info business, I'm joking. I don't view them any differently, because I'm like, I know we have a client in AFL that does more than 100 million a year. They did more than 100 million last year in info. It's like, I know their situation where they're at right now. And I know sometimes for sure they would want to switch with the person that's just doing 100K a month with one employee. So there is no like perfect thing. It's just give yourself context, and then also remove the, because sometimes basically the reason I'm saying this is because sometimes they see people and they're like, oh, but they glorify the extra money. When it's like, I don't think you glorify, just have context that that's possible and there's people doing that. But also that doesn't mean that like you should do that. Because for a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs are not made to make millions a month. They don't have what it takes.
Why is that?
They don't have what it takes. They don't have the stress tolerance. They don't have the emotional tolerance. Like, for example, I have a really, really high stress tolerance, really high. Whereas if someone else was in my position, they would fall apart. And by the way, that also, once again, just like how I said in life, everything is a comes with pros and cons. And the thing with me, because everyone wants to be like stoic, for example, like everyone wants to have a high emotional stress tolerance, but that also, in order to have high emotional stress tolerance, you have to make yourself numb to emotions. So I'm very numb to emotions, which means positive and negative. So for example, imagine your biggest dream day, that could make me feel nothing. And by the way, that's not because I take it for granted. Like there's so many things in my life, I really don't take things for granted, and I still keep my feet on the ground with this stuff. That's the way I was raised. But I'm just saying I don't feel it. I'm just numb. Now, so that's why, that numbness and that callousness, basically I'm very callous, emotionally callous, because I've been forced to. Because if I was an emotional person, all of these things that come and all these battles we have to fight, and fuck, especially, man, like this last year has been the best year ever, but fuck me, it's aged me. But if I had the emotional stress, like the stress tolerance of someone else, like the first battle,
you'd be out.
Yeah, you'd be out.
Be straight out.
But the benefit for them is they feel the highs and the lows. So like my emotional bandwidth here is like this. And I said a lot of people, what they want is, because people who are very emotional, they don't want to feel the lows as much. And they're like, okay, so I'm just going to become stoic and not feel the lows. Yeah, but that also means you don't feel the highs. So there's a give and take with everything.
It's kind of like a lot of these guys are operating from 10s, so they're 10 out of 10 or they're 1 out of 10, but you want to operate from almost like a 4 to a 7. You're just consistently in that wavelength consistently. But would you say that with kind of emotional regulation that you have, that you're still at peace with what you do? Or do you feel like you're not?
But what does at peace with what you do mean?
Are you proud of yourself?
I guess the simple answer is yes, but the reason I'm starting on this question is I don't ever sit with myself. I'm like, fuck, you did such an amazing job, blah, blah, this. Like, I don't know. I'm just not one of those people who kind of ruminates on these things. For me, I appreciate what we do, and I don't take it for granted that, like, you look at where we are with the clients that we have, with the people that we have in that room. As I said, like 99% of people don't know that there's people in that room doing those sort of numbers. They're just very private about things or whatever. These are offline people. And then, yeah, like I don't take things for granted. I don't take things lightly, but I'm just not a person that like ruminates and sits. And I'm like, I'm so proud of myself. Let me put it this way. If my life was a movie or turned into a movie, I will watch the movie. And I think for me, I feel good about that. I feel like I've had just the right experiences of very low lows and very high highs.
Yeah, man. 100% agree. One thing I really admire about you is as you have grown, your brand equity and brand integrity has improved. So it's almost like the architect, the narrative of the brand has actually improved. How intentional was that?
Well, I mean, yes and no. Some people would say the brand equity was stronger 2 years ago. For example, one of the things when everyone absolutely loved us, like I honestly don't think I had okay, of course there's some haters, but like I don't think I had any negative feelings towards me. Even let's say like 2 years ago, I told the team every hero becomes a villain. And then once you're a villain for long enough, they want to see you become a hero again. So, and that's also why I'm not emotional about these things. I understand that these things come and go, and your viewpoint on a person, because you can look at people who have been known for some time. They're heroes and they become villains, they become heroes. And I'm just not emotional about these things. I understand that it's the way that things go. So let me put it this way. The way that I view brand, because also, for example, we've made intentional moves to not be as viral anymore. So for example, our viewership in the last 2 years has gone down, but the only barometer that I work off of is revenue in the businesses. As long as revenue and whatever, each business is different, revenue/profit, depends what business it is. As long as that's growing, or whatever the main KPI is for that business, as long as that's growing, and also as long as my exposure to the high like echelons of people is growing, anything in between, I don't really care about.
Such a good point, right? Because like saying cash, the amount of views you get do not contribute towards revenue. But that shift has really only happened in the past 18 months, where before YouTube was really pushing, well, YouTube entrepreneurs were pushing more views, or they were seeing people like you and thinking, I'm going to go follow that path. What was the inflection point for you to say, oh, okay, this is not contributing to revenue, especially with the business channel?
Well, for me, nothing changed. It's just, for example, like 18 months ago, we had nothing high ticket to sell. So, and I've tried to say this many times, I've tried to say this many times so people don't fall under that trap. It's like, don't look at our vlog channel, for example. Like our vlog channel funnels sales for our physical product. Like the eyewear business is still a very small business. I wanted to do 8 figures this year. I don't think we're going to hit it in all honesty, but like still many, many, many millions a year. And next year, definitely an 8-figure business. So that we have a massive competitive advantage and a massive head start because of all the eyeballs from the vlog channel. Vlog channel also funnels a lot of our other businesses. Main channel funnels the mid-ticket that we open, monetize, which we open a couple times a year. Before it used to be our low-ticket digital launchpad. But I know you don't watch my main channel, and that's okay. Right?
I said it to the guys earlier. I was like, I have not watched that channel, dude. But the second you open the business one, the first video I watch all 28 minutes.
Yeah, of course. And I know that because at the end of the day, you're at a different stage of your career, and that's fine. You know, it's funny as well. Sometimes they're like, people will like hate on someone, or like people will be like, oh, his stuff's so basic. It's like, yeah, but what if I'm just helping that, catering to that side of the market? Like, okay, your stuff's so basic. It's like, oh, cool, your stuff's so advanced that no one can even fucking get. For me, I don't look at like, is it basic or advanced? It's like, what results does it get people? So before, I was just catering to people earlier on in their stage because that was all our product suite front-facing help with. Now we obviously have 8FL. We also now have WAP. Now for me, my main focus of WAP is our bigger enterprise B2B clients. Or not B2B, I guess technically all B2B, but like, you know what I mean? Like I'm focused on that side of the market. That's actually, you know, you even ask us like comparisons between us and other platforms and whatnot. I'm like, listen, bro, for me, there's space for all of us to coexist, just as long as we handle payments, because as I said, for me, that's the most important. That's the most valuable.
How come that's so valuable to you? What's the moat or unique angle there that you want to take?
Well, listen, it's the most important part of the business. Like if we make you money, more money, and as I said, like it's just fun. Like to me, it's so hilarious when I see stuff about people like, you know, they'll even talk about WAP fees and stuff like that. It's like, okay, you don't know what our fees are because once again, we help a lot of our focus. Now, listen, we have people on WAP that are doing $200 a month. You know, we have many people doing $5,000 a month. Like we have smaller creators, but which other platforms have as well. Where we excel, no one comes close to us, is on the payment side of things. And obviously, just like if you go to any company, you know, same thing if you work with a private bank, they're going to give you custom quotes depending on, like, if I had an extra $500 million that I could put into my one of my private banks, of course, they're going to give me very different terms than what I have right now. So, you know, people speaking on fees, you know, when they don't understand, of course, at this scale and at this size, if you're doing $10 million a month, which we have people on WAP doing, processing, yeah, it's fucking insane, right? And I think also I'm so ridiculously passionate about payments. The reason why as well is because, you know, even that individual inside that does 1.4 billion a year, he does in education, but it's offline education. And one of the things that he does is, so he has a bunch of universities all around Europe and also student lending. And I asked him the first time I met him, I said, listen, if you didn't have student lending, what percentage of your business would you lose? He said more than 99% overnight, 100%. And then if you inverse that, like invert it in our industry, if we have the same payment terms as the old school traditional education systems, well, then our business will 100x overnight. And I see that in businesses that start using WAP on a payments infrastructure perspective. Now, you have to focus your company resources. And by the way, I also want to say, like, I am not the CEO of WAP. At the end of the day, Steven, Cam, the rest of the team over there, you know, they've built something incredible and I've come in later. And obviously, you know, invested a pretty penny to be able to have a seat at the table. But at the end of the day, they know what they're doing. I'm just saying for me, where I'm most interested in the same way, if you speak to Apple, you know, an individual at Apple, one of the higher ups at Apple, you know, maybe they might be far more interested in Apple's App Store ecosystem. And that's really what gets them excited. And they're like, this is where we need to continue to go. Whereas someone else you speak to might be far more interested in the hardware. So that's not to say that when I speak on these things, that's not to say that this is an official WAP statement. I'm just saying from my perspective, what are we the best at? And I won't entertain a conversation. It's payments. Nothing comes close. And obviously we have exclusivity with, you know, majority, if not all, the top ones. So
it's super interesting to hear you talk because you're always talking from perspective of unique mechanisms and moats. Like everything is
advantages.
Everything is always an advantage, whether you're talking about your delivery, or you're talking about your team, or whatever that is. What's your system thinking around that? Because you've mentioned the word moat and like advantage about 20 times since this morning.
Yeah.
So it's obviously something that's continuously you're looking at your edge.
Yeah, well, I just understand business is very difficult. Life is very difficult. So even when I was talking about, for example, my investment thesis, I was saying how majority of my investments and majority of my portfolio is tied up in private equity. And why? Because that's a competitive advantage I have. Now, I can't go to, let's say, for example, I'm buying a piece of real estate. Like, I'm not going to go, oh, but my name is Iman Gadzhi and I have XYZ companies behind me. They're like, I don't give a fuck. You're trying to buy a house. What is you think I'm going to give you a discount just because of XYZ? So that in property, even though I have well over 8 figures in property, all cash, it's something that I invest in, but it's not, for me, I invest in properties, most of the stuff I don't disclose, properties where I just don't want to rent, right? So for me, it's like legacy properties I know I want for the next 10, 20 years, so it makes sense to buy. It's properties for loved ones, investment properties for loved ones, stuff like that. So the reason so I allocate cash there, but I don't view it as like, okay, this is my investing money. It's just like, this is my park money.
It's like watches.
Yeah, exactly. Because I don't have a competitive advantage there. It's in the same way if a real estate agent comes to me. I mean, I guess it's slightly different. Sometimes you do have, motivated sellers and stuff like that, and you can get shop good deals. But let's say, for example, with my private banks, when they come to me with a private equity deal, I'm like, listen, the fact that it's coming to me tells me it's not a good deal because I'm a tiny fish compared to who you guys work with. So the fact that it's coming to me already says it's not a good deal. So with my investments, I am super aggressive. I'm super aggressive, and if I can't be aggressive, I'm not going to take the deal. If I'm not getting ridiculous terms, I don't take the deal on because I also don't ask for those terms if I can't help. Like, so for example, a shoe company comes and they want me to invest. How much value can I realistically bring to that business? Okay, maybe a little bit of an audience, maybe. So first of all, why would I embarrass myself for asking for better terms? And then also, I have no advantage in that. So it just doesn't make sense. Whereas, I invest in a lot of software companies or platforms or, even like WAP as it currently stands for me. WAP is this huge mammoth. But the reason I invested basically was payments. That's when I think of WAP, just my personal relationship, it's payments. That's where I bring the most value, and that's where my focus goes, or at least as of right now. So anyways, all that to say, you have to look at where you have your edge, right? So whether that's in your business or whether that's in your investments. And if you don't have an edge, like it's in the same way, like I don't have an edge in the stock market. So that's why I just invest in the S&P 500. I'm sure I could have an edge if I allocated time. I just don't have the time to fucking study every single company. So if I don't have that edge, I'm going to get swept by someone that does have an edge. So that's why every single Tuesday, just dollar cost average into S&P 500. Is it the sexiest returns compared to what I get elsewhere? No, but I don't have an advantage. So why would I try to engage in a sport where everyone else has a gun and I have a knife?
Why do people shoot themselves in the foot then that way, right? That's the whole logic, is that you see a guy who's killed in an info and then he gets into like a nail technician business, right? It's like, dude, that's just clearly non-alignment. Whereas one observation I made of you is the fact that everything is vertically integrated. I know guys that like white label shit, but for the most part, it's not as deliberate. How have you thought about that? Because if you scale back 2-3 years, you were still picking software companies 2-3 years ago before like it was the thing to do, right? Before like SaaS and micro SaaS and AI SaaS was a thing. How have you seen that to be your big swings, right? Because it looks like, well, it is. Your cash flow is feeding your big bets. But you got to be careful, right? Because with a brand that you have, you can't be just investing into any sort of shit, even if it's something small.
Well, I guess one of the benefits as well is I don't make my money by, like, I don't monetize being a smart investor, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, it's a tertiary thing that people ask me for, but like, I'm not known as Mr. Investor. Now, for me, if you're known as Mr. Investor, people should know what you invest in. So like, and that's like, for example, I told you that company earlier today, like I did an 11x in 7 months. And I'm the largest shareholder in that company. We just closed our latest round of 40 million. I'm the largest shareholder minus the two co-founders, that is, of course. So whatever, I've already made many multiple millions from that deal. Now I don't owe anyone. I don't need to disclose the company. I'm happy to tell you off camera, because why? I don't make my money from that. Now here's the thing: if this was an investing conference or whatever, if that's what I teach, then yeah, I think you have a moral and ethical responsibility to disclose what companies you invest in. Otherwise, it's just all guessing games at that point. So yeah, the reason I bring up all this stuff is, yes, I started investing in software. And the reason why for me, software can integrate into the company. So for example, I said, I have no responsibility to tell people there's many things that people use inside of Digital Launchpad, inside of Monetize, inside of this, inside of that company, even stuff that you guys use. You don't know that I own 5%. Because also, do I need to tell you that? I'm not, it's genuinely the best product. Now, in the same way, by the way, people come to me and they ask, and I only roll out when it is the best product. So for example, that company, within 3 months, everyone inside of AFL will be using it. But right now, it's not ready yet. Okay. So I roll it out when the time is appropriate and when the product's where it needs to be. So software is a lane where we have an advantage, because we can bring users, we can onboard users, we can bring also a lot of product experience. So with that business, for example, Max is very, and feel free to speak to him, like Max and the guy who owns this company, they're very close in the sense of like, there's a lot of like tight feedback. Oh, what should we do? Should we do this? Should we do that? Etc. So we do a lot of product testing. Even the product team will test these softwares and give feedback, even if we don't roll it out immediately. So yeah, once again, that's where I have an advantage. If I always say this, like if info businesses had value, I genuinely believe I'd be a billionaire by now, because all I do is make money in info and invest in info businesses. So for example, if I taught e-commerce, all I would do is take the money from e-commerce and buy e-commerce businesses. If I taught real estate, I guess a little slower, but that is what the top real estate people do. If I taught real estate, all I would do is take that and put that into more real estate. So for me, I'm in an unfortunate position where the thing that I'm the biggest expert in, which is this whole info space, I can't take that money and invest into info. So then when I looked at it, I was like, I can't invest in info businesses. So what's the closest cousin to it? And software was that for me.
Such a good point. And it's just, it's a unique angle. You talk about we're in a business of transformation, not in the business of information. But if the value of information is going to zero because of AI and you can just ChatGPT anything, then what business will we be in?
Well, listen, I don't think the value of information goes to zero. I think that the value of cohesive information, because once again, let's say, for example, when you go take a driving lesson, the driver or your instructor, they're reading off a book. Same thing when you go to college, your college professor is reading off a book that you can literally buy online. So why are you going there? You're not going specifically just for the information. You're going for the experience and the transformation around that, right? And I think that's why I tell people in the info space, I literally told you off camera, you were talking about a lot of people struggle with asking bland questions. Okay, well then can you build a tool? And especially with the way that AI and software is these days, I guarantee you could pay someone $5,000, $10,000 to build a tool that will help scrape, use the correct model to scrape every single piece of content that they can find on this person and ask questions. And for example, you can even have on your tool, you could have a sliding scale that says, do you want the questions to be more rigid specific or do you want them to be more open-ended? And now all of a sudden, when people come into your program, they're like, one of their biggest limiting beliefs. You also want to build tools around limiting beliefs or things that people tell themselves, okay, but this will be a roadblock. So people might come into your program and they go, yeah, but I just don't know the right questions to ask. Don't worry about it. I built the right tool for it. So now you're building I always say you have to build ecosystems inside of info. And that's why we've been able to succeed over the years, is because a lot of people on the outside, they don't even bother to check. They don't even bother to know what we do. They think we just sell a course. I can't remember the last time we just sold a course. So now these days, whether it's tools to build a transformation or even back in the day, on our $1,500 product, you had 6 weeks of one-on-one coaching. I don't know a single soul. I don't know an info company that's ever pulled that off at that price point. $1,500, 6 one-on-one calls for 6 weeks. And bear in mind, that's outside of the 15 group coaching calls we have for that program, the 9 courses that you get inside of it, taught by the best experts in the world. It's funny. I even had people say like, oh, you shut down your agency in 2022. I'm like, do you not check that my programs? Okay, well, first of all, yeah, you know how you guys know that I literally told you that, number one. And that's also, for example, why we shut down the high ticket, because I was like, I don't feel comfortable talking about agency stuff at a high level, but helping beginners get to, start and scale their agencies. We all know, like those beginning stages, it's really very little changes. But nonetheless, I'm like, okay, valid point. So you guys feel like I'm out of touch with outreach. Okay, do you want me to bring in an outreach expert? Even better, let me bring in the owner of Lemlist, who's a multi-$100 million software, and he'll teach outreach. And he taught all of our outreach to all of our students. So like, I think when you get closer to how we actually run our products, you start to understand just what level we play at, which is why we've been able to do this for so long, and we'll keep growing year on year. But it's even not now, it's even in the past. I was always thinking transformation, not just information. Because it is true. Information is, I don't want to say it's futile. Organized information is incredibly powerful. Once again, why is the For Dummies series, the books where it's whatever for dummies, like all they're doing is taking information out there and synthesizing it and putting in a cohesive book. And, those book, the For Dummies series, that they've netted far more than probably all these other books combined. So I don't think information isn't valuable. I just think if you're just selling information and you're not thinking about what can you sell outside of that. And by the way, that's one of the coolest things right now. For example, we're building a WAP. And once again, I'm so, blessed to work with fucking such geniuses. Like right now, a lot of the WAP team is in San Fran because they're building out a very robust apps infrastructure. So inside of your WAP, you can have a custom, like for example, let's say you're selling fitness, right? You're in the fitness industry. Okay, calorie tracker or like macro, whatever. I'm not very well versed in all that stuff. I just have Russian genetics. So I don't do all the macro stuff.
Limiting belief,
maybe. So what you can do now inside of your WAP, you can check the WAP app store. And you can literally go and someone who's already created these softwares, you pay a one-time fee for, let's say, $5,000, or let's say, you're charging it for XYZ. Let's say you charge people $100 a month. They take a 10% clip of that, but they've built the tool already for you. So that's where, for example, we think a lot about the ecosystem experience with WAP, where you're like, okay, it is true. Information, just selling information on its own. Now, it also depends on price point. For example, inside of Monetize, we help people at the lower price points. Now, we tell people you can create a digital product that's just info. You're not going to sell it for $5,000, okay? But you can sell it for $30, $50, $100. That's a different side of the market. So, I know it's a bit of a word vomit, but there's a lot of variables that you have to consider and factor in, and then that tells you how valuable info strictly on its own is.
Well, that's where people need accountability, right? If it was just information needed, then everyone would be shredded and everyone would be super rich, but most people are fat and most people are broke, right? So it's not in that. I think it's in the accountability and the mentorship, because something my head of client success, Tom, who's an absolute legend, often says to me is, people aren't buying just information, they're buying the experience of you. Like they want to have the characteristic traits of you. Now they don't want to copy you, but I mean, that's what they're emulating, right? To some degree, because largely it's all the same shit anyway. It's lead sales and delivery. So knowing that, what is the unique angle you can put in, kind of like with your team when you're doing the monthly reviews, you come in to put your stamp on things, and that's what's like, yes, that's the culture, that's what brings the attitude. So I think, even I was speaking to Tristan said that he ran a Monetize call yesterday, and one guy wanted to have a faceless AI personal brand, but that is literally like, that doesn't make sense. It's a personal brand that's faceless. Whereas the unique mechanism of personal brand is the fact that it's you. So it's almost like people are trying to use AI in the wrong way that will actually commoditize themselves in the process. Whereas doing these events, man, nothing is better than this. We're literally in English countryside.
Yeah. Listen, it depends. It just depends what game you're playing. And that's why one of the first things, people ask me, what should my next steps in business? I just go, what's your goal? Like if you're trying to get to $1 million a month, we have to have a different mechanism to 10 million a month, different mechanism to $100,000 a month or $500,000 a month or $10,000 a month. Like let's say, for example, that individual that would have asked about like how do I have a faceless channel. Basically, it was only once I started investigating this topic that I realized how many channels on YouTube I watch, and I'm like, I've never seen their face, because I watch like a lot. It's basically like my news source. What I mean by that, like if I want to find out what's happening in the markets, or why China's real estate market is collapsing, like I watch a lot of videos, and I only realized later, I'm like, this is an AI voice, and this is like, so this is an AI voice, and then this is also like faceless. Now, someone like that could take that and then sell a $20, $50, $100 digital product. Are they going to become a millionaire? Absolutely no chance. Okay, no chance. But for some people, they just want to make an extra $1,200 a month. Like those are where that model works. And it's in the same way, like if someone was like, I want to make 10K a month in info showing my face, I would go, okay, if you want to do it showing your face, do coaching. because that's the easiest way to get there. So it just depends, like things can change, these levers change, and the right way to go about the model changes depending on, you know, where you're trying to take it.
Something I think about a lot is like, what does success look like? What does winning, what's a win for you? Not even success, what does a win look for you? A win for many people that are here could just be coming. Just spending the weekend here. It's not even about getting that one thing that's going to scale your business. Same with joining programs. Guys that are young, that have just been on the wrong path, or even on the regular path, just joining is like, whoa, there's something on the inside here. And that's one thing I've gotten even from your team is like, whoa, all the guys are super dialed in. But it's, again, what does a win look like? Because it's not always about dollars and cents. It starts a transformation for people. But I would say, I want to ask you about, let's look at your positioning. So, speaking to Tristan, he said something that you guys kind of went through was people identified you as an SMA bro, and then you're the YouTuber, and then at one stage you're a TikToker. How do you adjust your positioning to be what do you want it to be? How do you control the narrative?
Well, yeah, once again, this is where it just depends what you want. So, you know, I have a dear friend of mine who's an advisor to me. I think he should be coming in a few days. You know, and he's advising me on a lot of the M&A stuff. And, you know, he tries to tell me all the time, like, listen, bro, we have to start a fund. And I said, even though like my track record, it's under 10 companies, but like what I've done with my investments in companies, he's like, bro, I've never seen anything like it. And I'm like, yeah, but no shit, Sherlock. It's because I'm investing in companies I have a competitive advantage in. And also like the amount that I negotiate in terms of discounted equity on the front end, and also the way that I structure the deals, which obviously off camera, I'm happy to talk about. I'm like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. But the reason I bring that up is I told him, bro, I'm not known for that. If I start a fund all of a sudden, I'm not known for that. So it just wouldn't make sense. So for me, there's what you're known for. Like I've always, up until recently, I've always dumbed myself down online. And that was that was very specific and very conscious. I'm like, well, I don't need you guys to know how smart I am or how big the business are, because I'm not helping you guys get to this. I'm helping you guys with this stage of your career. So if I'm helping you with this stage of your career, what does me talking about all this other stuff? It's in the same way if you're working with a running coach, and the running coach is like, if the running coach's content, if you want to hit a sub 4 hour marathon, and all of his content is like him going for a 2 hour, you're like, well, you're so far, like, what are you going to teach? Like, it would be off-putting. Whereas if all of his content is like, I am, how to do your first sub 4 hour marathon, everything around sub 4. Now, in his private life, he might be fucking running a 2 hour 30, but what does he need to bring that part of his life into where he is right now? He's not helping people with that stage. So for me, I always just dumbed our stuff down. Listen, if investing was my main occupation, of course, in future, all I would talk about is investing, and all I would talk about is all the companies I'm invested in. And, when I can, talk about the case studies of what it's done. But that's just not where I'm at right now. So yeah, quite frankly, there's what you do in your private life. And then there's what your solution solves for people, and they don't need to be the same thing. Everyone thinks that you need to like constantly talk about where you are right now. It's like, I mean, yeah, if you want to, but for me, I just look at brand as like, who am I trying to attract? And especially in my stuff, I'm very cognizant. Like I follow a bell curve. I tell the team this all the time as well. If you're first starting out, you think I'm a genius. If you're moderately successful, you hate me. No, but I'm very conscious of this. And if you're ultra successful, you think I'm a genius. I don't appeal to that middle market, because the middle market, they need things to sound more complicated than they are. One of the things, I'm never going to overcomplicate things, because I've seen the people that use the biggest words and I know what they actually do behind the scenes and what they own and what their numbers are. And it's never what people think it is, right? Like, you, once again, go speak to the individuals that you actually know are doing $1 billion downstairs. See how many fucking crazy big word terms they use. They don't talk like that. That's not how people at that level talk. People at a certain level talk very bluntly and trying to use as little words as humanly possible.
He's super dressed down, just chilling literally just sitting next to me. Just literally sitting right next to me.
So, all that to say that I understand that I appeal to people in the earlier stages of their career, which obviously is, a big part of our business, helping people launchpad their career. And I appeal to people at the highest levels, because they understand they don't look at what a person says, they look at what a person does, and they look at the moves that are being made, and they have the cognitive ability to look at that and go, maybe he's not revealing everything. Whereas the people in the middle, they don't understand. Just because you don't talk about something, or just because you don't need to reveal something, doesn't mean that, you know, things aren't happening, or moves aren't being made. So it just depends what now there's some people that only want to appeal to the middle. Like, you know, there's many individuals that appeal really much to that middle market. The beginner, you know, the people in the earlier stage of their career, they don't really drive with them. And by the way, the really high level people, they also don't drive with them because they see behind the whatever.
The reality is you're going to piss people off no matter what you do. So you may as well know who you're targeting and just not piss off people that are going to pay you the most money. It's going to happen to you, right? You're gonna have those people. And was there any point for you that you felt like if you got negative feedback that it was too much?
No, not really, because, you know, for example, like last year we had a bunch of hit pieces go out and this and that, and I always tell the team, like, for me, my barometer is, are the businesses affected? No, the last year has probably been the biggest growth we've ever had. Well, specifically this year. Number one, and number two is I don't care about the middle market. Is the high level people, are they still, like, where are my business partnerships at? Where are my business opportunities? Where's my deal flow at the highest echelons? And that has been, I mean, the last year specifically, it's been insane, you know, where we've taken things. So, yeah, I'm just very, as I said, I'm very unemotional. Even with the team, you know, I've told them these things way ahead of time. I said, listen, a hero will become a villain. Once you're a villain long enough, you'll become a hero again. Once you're a hero for enough time, then you'll become a villain. It's just all cyclical. And you can't be emotional about it. It's just the way the game goes. And then also, even when it comes to viewership, like I told the team, you know, when 3 years ago, when I would come up with a concept, I write down bullet points for like 3 minutes. I just speak to the camera for 20 minutes. It would cut down to 12-minute videos, 12-minute, just rant about anything. And every video would get 1 million views in the first 2 weeks, like guaranteed. I was like, guys, this will not last, number one. And number two, also this format will become obsolete. So, you know, when people try to do the Iman Gadzhi editing style, once that becomes a thing, once something is named Iman Gadzhi editing style, it's already not effective anymore, right? So that's why, like, for us, it's always been important that we can do any format. Now, there's formats we're stronger at, there's formats we're weaker at. But yeah, whether that's vlogs, whether that's really boring business videos, whether that's, you know, more high production stuff, whether that's events, like, we're just very multifaceted in it.
It's interesting, right? Because you've gone through the arc. You've gone through the arc of growing, feeling that pressure and strain, but not being subject to the algorithm, right? And I think with the new wave of YouTube, it being less focused on just views, likes, and engagement, you're well positioned, right? Because I think a lot of guys will use those excuses to leave the market, can move on to the next thing, or say it wasn't working or whatnot. But it's people around you too. One thing I wanted to really dig into was with your team structure. So there's kind of two schools of thoughts with teams. Some people say that if you have a team, that team should be so focused on you that they shouldn't have a brand. But your C-suite team all kind of have their own brands to some degree. Like, even like Alex, like everyone recognizes like Alex from like this, you know, like the random videos. What's your thoughts on that?
Listen, I'll be entirely honest. Who was I speaking to? I was speaking to someone about this the other day. Maybe they might have small brands or whatever. Like, Alex is a different story, because also Alex, like, for me personally, I don't have anyone in the company that's trying to grow their personal brands, because also the thing is, like, listen, not to say that I don't enjoy the content we make, and I also know it's super valuable, and that's also one of the reasons I keep making it. The first 3 years I had on YouTube, I made no money from, I generated no business from. I did my years of creating content just to give back. If there was no business benefit from our content, I would not make content anymore. And that's just the truth. I've been doing it for 10 years at this point. So my team knows I hate social media. I hate social media. I hate content. I hate all. Listen, I just like to focus on business, right? So they understand that. So they also don't glorify building a personal brand. Now, if you want to build your personal brand, usually that's because you want to go expand out. And by the way, that's super cool. And like, you have my entire blessing to do that. It's just, you know, we've had all these years of year-on-year growth, and also the opportunities and the ventures we have now. My team knows if you want to stay in this ship, like, we're sailing, we've already sailed to victory, but we're sailing to like something that's generational. If you want to stay on this boat with us, like, of course, we all act in a certain way. Like, if you want to like be 1 foot in, 1 foot out, like, we're not really cool with that. if you want to be one foot out, like that's great. Like just go do your thing, and you have our blessing. And all the time, like constantly, I'm even introducing like people that used to work at our company and then went and did their own thing. I'm introducing business to them, this, that. Like if you want to go do that, go do that. Now, even still, like every single person that either whatever we've had to let go or have let go on their own accord, every single person always tries to come back to company, without a doubt. Like, I can't find this culture anywhere else. But going back to the main point of discussion, yeah, I guess technically like Alex has a personal brand, but he's not like, I know Alex, he's not trying to grow. He's just showcasing his work.
He's just kind of a bro about it.
Yeah. You know, he's showcasing his work, and of course that's going to get, followers and likes and this, that. But like, I know, listen, I'm with Alex 90% of the time, 99%, 95% of the time. He's not a social media guy. He doesn't care. In fact, most of the time he like wants to throw his phone away. So yeah, I just in general, I'm not the biggest fan of like, let me put it this way. I view social media and building a personal brand for the sake of business. But if you are within a business, then there's no reason for you to be building your personal brand. If you want to do that, you have our blessing, and we will do anything to help you with your future ventures. It's just like, it's not really aligned with what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, and same with the culture. I think because a lot of guys might come in as like entrepreneurs, but they're just early in their journey, and the culture that you create, it's very similar to the culture that we created, man. Honestly, a lot of guys tried like SMA, they tried a few other things, they tried editing on their own, they're freelancers, and they came in and I said, okay, we'll pay you, but we'll also teach you shit. And then I think they stay for that. Like we fly everyone, similar to you do customer events, our company events. When we do our masterminds, we try to bring everyone to Bali, and I feel like that's like a nice event for people to come through, they stay together, and it's like a good vibe. It's a much stronger vibe. But again, right, it's chess versus checkers. Most guys aren't playing those games.
Yeah, listen, you have to pour into your team, and the other thing is you have to know what people's dreams and aspirations are, and then also kind of work within that. Like, for example, you know, Alex in a few months is launching his book. You know, so he's doing a coffee table book of all of his work of art, and you know, also now a fucking author, because he's also wrote like many pages and took journal excerpts and stuff that he literally wrote in his diary from 3 years ago or 2 years ago while we're going through the craziness that is our life, and you know, poems and this and that. And you know, I really wanted, you know, or strongly suggested him to do that as well, because I'm like, listen, give people an insight into this life. Now, if I sat here and I was like, listen, this is not okay, blah, blah, this, that. Like, I know that this is just, sometimes you have to almost let people have their side quests. As long as you understand that they're committed to the mission. Now, Alex and I have been together so long, and we know that it's like literally fucking life thing. So it's fine to do that. Now, if it was someone who just came into the company, I'll go, so you're basically just trying to build a business on the side, which is fine. Like, once again, it's fine. It's just, we're trying to get people to all focus, because every single person in the company, every single year gets a raise, right? So like in our company, you grow, and everyone knows being in our company is the biggest insurance policy on earth, right? Because like, maybe I also tell people all the time, like, let's say hypothetically $1, I talked about this earlier. Let's say, for example, you make $1 a month at our company. I know you could go to another company and make $1.50 at their company, but in 12 months, that company will be bust, or the person would have given up, or this person would have like fucked something up. And in a year, you would have been at like $1.50 at our company anyways, regardless, except that then grows year on year on year. So people at our company know it's an insurance policy. But going back to the whole EQ thing, that's where you need to know your team, their wants, their dreams, their desires. And there's been people in the company where I've told them, I'm like, listen, you're just not cut out to work in a team. You need to be an entrepreneur.
And that's good leadership from you.
Yeah.
Because you're able to spot that.
Yeah.
To think like, okay, I'm going to lead this team and identify that you're not the best fit for this reason, because maybe you're a better fit to go somewhere else. What do you think about how the team contribute to like delivery? So a lot of your team do all delivery, they nail the delivery for all your products. How do you ensure that you get amazing results for people when people expect to work with you?
Because they are working with me. What they do is they're synthesizing everything that I know. So you get the best parts of what I know, and then also what my team knows. So for example, you know, I told you we've probably had 15,000 students that have had one-on-one coaching at that last at the agency program. Now these top coaches are now the product developers for our company. So for example, when we're developing a new version of, like, let's say, you know, that final version we made of the agency program, my product team has literally spoken to 15,000 customers, taken 15,000 individual people, has coached them for 6 weeks. So they're like, oh, we think in my mind, I think the sticking point is this. They're like, well, no, I can tell you from experience, in-field experience, the sticking point is this. So we get to put the best of both our minds together. So there's everything I know, and then there's also what they experience and feedback they get, boots on the ground, speaking to these people every day. So it's just a joint collective. Now, many times, listen, there's never a piece of content that goes out that I don't approve. As in, like, I will look at it and I'll be like, okay, this one thing I don't believe that. That's not an actual worldview that I have. And of course, working alongside these people for so long, and having the privilege of doing so, they can speak like me. They can talk like, they just know me so well at this point.
Second brain.
Yeah, it's second brain. And also you gotta remember, like, when all of the books you're reading, or maybe 30, 40, 50 years ago, it's a different story, but pretty much every book you read in the last 10 years, 99% of it was written by a ghostwriter. No, but it's just the truth. Like,
so true, man.
No, it's literally the truth, and people need to understand this. 99%, like all your top favorite books, it was 99% written by a ghostwriter, and that 1% they came in. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't say that in any judgmental way. It's like, of course, if the other person thinks so clearly like you, they can do 90% of the writing, and then you come in and you go, okay, actually, I don't believe this, or this isn't the way we do things, or actually, my perspective about this is different. And it's like, great, why not?
It's beautiful, man, because I think that's the part of like a really deep culture. I joke that my wife could answer half the questions I get asked in my program, and she thinks she can't do. Like, I'm actually being serious. She's like, I think I know that answer better even than you. You said it this way 3 weeks ago, which is what, like, combining your thought process with your actions are. So we're in the UK, and obviously the UK gets a lot of shit, and you spend a lot of time in Dubai. What's your thoughts kind of being back here now? Like, do you kind of wish to live in the UK again at some point?
Well, initially the plan was to come back and I was going to claim non-dom status. So I would have been applicable for non-dom status, which would have given me many, many, many years of not paying tax here.
How does that work?
So with non-dom program, I think it's like 17 years or something like that. I forget the exact numbers, but basically, if you can claim non-dom status, any income you make outside of the UK is not taxable. So I would have been able to live here. It's, similar to, like, Italy have a similar scheme, except theirs is not by, like, there you buy in. Basically, like Italy, it's 100K. It used to be 100K, now it's 200K a year. Once again, I'm sure some minute details about this have changed. So, don't quote me. This is my main occupation. But, there, for example, you pay a 200K flat tax. And if you make $100 million, you make $1 million, you pay the same. It's just a retainer, right? So I would have been able to move back to UK, and that was originally the plan after spending enough time abroad. Now they've abolished that, so I don't get that benefit anymore. For me personally, I always say, I think the best place, you make your money in the US. And what I mean by that is, like, we make our money in the US. Now, our like at the eyewear brand, for example, our customers are US based, majority. That's majority of where our money is. In the info business, in the software companies, majority of our customers are US based. So I'm making money in the US while not being in the US, or I have no interest of ever living in the US, quite frankly.
Why is that?
It's just not really my place. I mean, New York, I like. New York, I like, because I like that energy of go get it. Listen, nothing against America. It's just, I don't know. What's interesting is I find that a lot of Americans have a fascination with Europe. Like, a lot of Americans want to be in Europe. I don't see any Europeans that want to be in America. I don't find that translate in the same way. So with the UK, I mean, listen, I have multiple properties here. So I have holdings in the UK. Like, I have presence in the UK. Obviously, I'm very careful with how much presence I have here, to make sure that there's no way there can be any misunderstanding that I most certainly do not live here. So for me, I get to enjoy it. Listen, I'm here 75 days a year. I have, as I said, I have cars that are not in my name, that are not my cars, but I have cars that I might have access to. I have properties that I might have access to. So I get to enjoy all the fruits, all the benefits that London has to offer for 75 days a year. For me, that's enough. And the reason I'm going back to my point, in my opinion, the best way is to make your money in the US. You protect your money in the Middle East, as in being tax efficient. Now, bear in mind, of course, if you have to have physical offices in the US, you do it. As I said, most of the businesses I'm investing, or not, pretty much every business I'm investing in is US based. And that's also where our offices are. So I just don't have, like, there's no say in that. But for me personally, the way that I'm set up, I can literally live anywhere. It's fine. So it's nice to benefit from the US economy while also paying no tax in the UAE. And then in terms of, so you make your money from the US, you protect it in the Middle East or Singapore, Switzerland, not so much anymore. And then you spend your money in Europe. Europe is the best place on earth to spend your money. Hands down. There's nowhere else on earth I'd rather spend money.
In what way?
Spend money to enjoy life. I think that if you have money, and listen, I'm not saying hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm just saying, even if you're in a very comfortable position in life, Europe truly is such an incredible place to spend your money. Even small things, like if I compare sometimes, for example, like cars, like the cars I have in Dubai compared to the cars I have here, even though the price on the ones in Dubai are substantially higher, I get far more enjoyment in the UK ones. And in fact, I specifically don't go for the most expensive cars here. It's just like I have like a Porsche Targa. That's my favorite car on earth. That experience of like being in Europe and like having the top, like it's just incredible.
Even driving through Europe, man.
Yeah.
It's just so aesthetic and so beautiful. I know Dubai have kind of replicated it to some degree, but it is completely unique. Okay, my last question for you is, so you can buy anything, basically anything. What's like one thing that you enjoy the most that money doesn't even play a factor in?
Time spent with my team, time spent with loved ones. Like, listen, at the end of the day, that's really what it comes down to. Now, I think the reason I work so hard is because I work alongside people I really enjoy it with. Like, I don't know what it's like to work with people I don't enjoy working with. I don't think I will work as hard if I did. And then in terms of other stuff, like for me, you should just use your money to spend your money on things that you find beneficial. Like, and that's also why I have so many wealthy friends. I don't judge them. Like, as in, for me, like, I don't care about wine. I have friends of mine that have I have one friend that has tens of millions of dollars in wine. I don't get it. Do I need to get it? Does he need to explain himself to me? Does he need to, like, if it's important to you, it's important to you. And as long as you're financially responsible, why does my opinion matter? In the same way, like, whether that be watches or cars or like art, like I'm not educated enough to understand art. Whereas for some people, they have tens of millions of dollars in art, and that's cool. I'm not nearly enough educated to understand art or get it, but like, am I going to judge someone because they spend their money on that? So for me, there's certain things that bring value to, like, honestly, every single night I go to bed and I have fresh sheets every night. I'm very blessed to have a maid that lives in my house. So all my places, I have fresh sheets every night. Chef, that makes me feel very, very successful. And that makes me feel far more successful than any supercar or watch or this or that. And then buying, like, for me, legacy assets. And what I mean by that is, like, I don't really care about all the cars and this and that and whatnot. Like, when you, like, I like having the capital to deploy on, like, if there's a big move to be made, I like knowing that I can action those moves when the time arises.
If you had to be remembered for one word, what would that be? What do you want your legacy to remember for?
By people that don't know me or people that know me? Because those are two different things.
Explain.
Listen, people know me, like, whatever people think they know of me is none of my concern. That's why, like, I don't get emotional when people are like, I think XYZ. It's like, bro, nice way possible. Would you be offended if I thought XYZ of you? I don't know you. I've never spoken. Like, you have your assumptions about a person, and you have what you actually know about a person when you spend time with them. So what people think of me in terms of legacy from I could not give.
From close proximity?
I think for me, it's just, you have to make the people around you feel loved. Like, for me, I want the people around me to know that genuinely, truly, I care about them so deeply and I love them so deeply. And I want them, as long as they know the way that I show it. And what I mean by that is everyone has a different way that they show love. And I don't believe that a person could be loving in all 10 different ways. Like, the thing that makes you loving, like, I show my love through acts of service. Like, I really just genuinely, I don't care who it is, especially, even my team, like, I do things to show people I care.
Yeah. Man, I want to say a big thank you. You're a legend.
No,
Huge influence on me,
on.
man. For the past 5-7 years in total. Big thank you, man. You're a legend.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you, man.